Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It's Garland here bringing you a new Pantheon video. And today, as the title suggests, we're going to talk about the technique system and how to use it and what it actually does, etc. So techniques are abilities which are unique to specific weapon types. Shields and held hand like items like tombs or whatever they come out with currently don't have any techniques tied to them. I'm sure that'll change down the road. Techniques are learned as a player increases their skill with the related weapon types. So techniques are tied with your weapon levels. Your weapon levels are tied with your overall level. So when you get level 5, your slashing will increase. By leveling your slashing, by using slashing weapons, may unlock more techniques for you. There are two types of techniques: standard techniques and class techniques. The standard techniques are available to any class capable of equipping the required weapon type, while class techniques are specific to certain classes in addition to requiring a certain weapon type. There may even be special techniques down the road which are only usable with a specific item, so I'm sure those will eventually be coming out. So your techniques are like regular class abilities and spells. You have to have them on your hotbar, which means techniques are obviously limited to a set amount. You only have 4 technique slots available, which you can see are this row right here. You have your normal abilities. You have your buffs and debuffs and group buffs and your abilities here. But your technique bar is right here. And as I said, you can only have 4 at a time. So you have to sort of plan ahead of time. Some techniques are designed to deal damage. Others provide additional options such as stuns, debuffs, etc. Techniques will primarily affect melee characters. However, casters and healers will benefit from techniques as well, both through basic attacks that allow them to supplement their limited mana pools, as well as unique magical applications of their weapons to buff and debuff. All techniques require readiness to perform. You should be adequate and familiar with the readiness. Your readiness can be found right below your mana bar if you're a caster. Your readiness bar is right here, sectioned into 3 sections. Readiness is generated passively, but you'll generate more while auto-attacking and receiving damage. If I recall, techniques were released back in 2022, and it's been an ongoing process with them up until this point. I'm sure they're going to see more changes as early access continues. So now that you have a gist of the technique system, we're going to take a look at some, and then we're going to also look at them in game. Alright guys, and I've came up with a little system to hopefully show you guys how to do this and how to efficiently utilize this. This little system, again, is just something I came up with. Nothing spectacular. You have to start with a base, then a catalyst, and then the outcome. So it's a 3-piece system. You're always going to start with a base technique, a catalyst, which is another technique, and then the outcome from those two being pushed together. It's a 3-tier system. So for instance, if we look at the wizard has a technique called Frostfoot, which they get at level 7, and it has a state, which is the base. So it is off balance. If you cast Frostfoot on an enemy, you will put that base debuff on them of off balance. Now, off balance by itself doesn't do anything. It's just a status effect that needs a catalyst to do something. Now, the wizard itself, in this example, can utilize its own base. So the catalyst in this example is Snowball, which you'll get at level 15. It says exploits the off balance and puts the target in the knockdown status. So the knockdown status is your outcome, and it's basically a stun. So the wizard will cast, Frostfoot, immediately cast Snowball, and the target will be knocked down and stunned. Now this is just one class. When it comes to group content, you're going to have something that looks like this. All of the casters will have something called Force, which again is that base stat, and this provides the opening gap status effect. Now the opening gap status effect can be utilized by almost every class in the game with something. For this example, this is the monk, and the catalyst the monk is using is going to be Spear Hand Strike, which they get at level 5. It's a monk technique. It deals minor damage to the target and exploits opening gap based on what primary weapon you're using as a monk. So for instance, if you're playing your monk and you're using hand to hand, you're going to get restrained. Now restrained reduces their attack speed by 25%. That's a significant number coming from a level 5 monk. Now, however, if they're using a blunt weapon, like a staff, for instance, you're going to create Overwhelmed Mind, which reduces all of their resistance by 20%. Also, a very valid debuff coming from a level 5 monk. So, these classes are intertwined. I can't go over all of the classes and all of the techniques. As of right now, there is no database that has everything. Plus, obviously, things are subject to change and being adjusted in the future. But this is just a little taste of the technique system and how you guys should be utilizing in group play. You want to talk to your party when you first join the party, unless you're all friends and you already have this planned out. But you want to talk to your random party members and say, hey, I can cast Opening Gap. What can you guys cast to utilize that? Another one is, hey, I can cast Exposure. What catalysts do you guys have that need exposure? So again, it's a 3-tiered system at its basis. You have to have a base, you have the catalyst, and then you have the outcome. Very simple system. However, I would say 80% of the population right now of the game, as of filming this video, unfortunately has no idea how to utilize the system to their benefit. So we're going to take one more example. We're going to jump back in game on my Necromancer, and I'm going to show you guys how this looks in game, and then we'll wrap up this video. Alright guys, here we are back in the game. I'm going to show you just one more quick little example here of the technique system. So you can use whatever you want, and again, it's based on your group. It depends what level you are and what you have access to currently. When I'm out just soloing on my Necro, I always have my Induce Nausea on. It is a Necromancer technique. It has no cost, and it's a DOT. It's as simple as that. It's a free DOT. It doesn't do a ton of damage. It doesn't matter. It's a free DOT. I also have the Monster Within, which is another Necromancer technique, and it's basically just a fear. It's a 5-second fear that I can use while I'm kiting around or whatever. But I usually always keep those two on my bar. Now, as I showed you in the example, we have Force. This is that base debuff. It's the Opening Gap. Again, Opening Gap does not do anything by itself. That is the base debuff. And then you have to have someone casting the Catalyst to get the outcome. So for me personally, and what I do use in group is Power Sap on the Necromancer, which exploits the Opening Gap state, creating Rattled. So Rattled reduces their outgoing damage by 8%. It's a nice little debuff, and it costs very little. So one thing to mention, if you're in a group and say 2 people need Opening Gap, you do have to cast it twice. But you have to make sure that you expunge the base statistic before recasting. So if I cast Opening Gap, someone has to use that Opening Gap before I can cast Opening Gap again for it to be used again. Now, if you have 2 casters in the group, you have to set up some sort of rotation. You can't have Opening Gap on the mob twice. So what does this all look like? Let's just go find us a little trash mob here real quick. Hello, trash mobs. Trash mobs? There's this bat. Oh, there you go. There's a Ghost Viper. So if we target the Ghost Viper and I simply just cast Opening Gap. Opening Gap is right here. It's right in the debuff. Opening Gap. So again, Opening Gap is not doing anything. Nothing's happening. The mob is not taking any damage. I'm taking damage. Opening Gap is on there. Now if I cast this, now Opening Gap changes to that debuff. Outgoing damage reduced by 8%. Which, you know, that's nothing not light. You know, 8% is 8%. So it is what it is. Now again, I can cast Opening Gap on there again, and now someone else can utilize this if they need to. You cannot stack the same catalyst on there for the same outcome. However, if someone else needs Opening Gap, now it is available to them. So like I said, just a short little tutorial on the technique system. That's all I really have for you today. It is more in depth as you level up. More things become available. But in my mind, this is a phenomenal system. It's something that really hasn't ever been utilized, as far as I know, in other MMORPGs. And going forward, there's countless things they can do with this and take it to the next level if they so choose. We just have to wait and see how they develop the technique system overall. So that is just a short little video today, again, on the technique system. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, as always, you can go ahead and leave them below. And I'll see you guys real soon.